Well, thank you so much for being here today. I know we're here for a topic that is we don't want to be here for, and it's unfortunately it's a topic that is becoming all too prevalent in this country, and that is losing our loved ones to fentanyl poisonings. And I appreciate you being here. I know you're a strong advocate for against fentanyl and for families, and I'm just grateful you're taking the time to come talk to us today and share some of your feelings with us. First of all, how many kids do you have?
Well, I always like to say I have 2 children. One is in heaven and one is here. I have my daughter, Leah. She is 32 years old, and Jacob passed at 31.
Now, Jacob, was he younger or older than Leah?
He was older.
Older than Leah.
Yeah.
And tell everybody a little bit about Jacob and what happened with Jacob.
So Jacob he was a fun-loving spirit. He loved to play tennis, ride his bike in the El Tour de Tucson, hike, go watch boxing events in Las Vegas. He was dabbling in drugs, from what I understand. And so the day that he had gotten hold of the fentanyl, he had used cocaine. And I was out shopping for him, buying him a pillow, and I had seen a backpack, and so I called to his phone, and I was gonna find out if he wanted that backpack. So I didn't get an answer, and I thought, well, he's just sleeping. Got a call about 10 minutes later from my brother-in-law, who said he was unresponsive. So I had everything in my hand. I just threw it at the door of the store, and I just flew to my car. I was like praying, and just like I'd never made it from one place to another so fast. So I get there and I see about 6 paramedics working on him. And it was in May, so it was warm out. And I was just like screaming and praying and just begging God, to not let him die. But I kind of had a feeling that because he was unresponsive and they didn't get a heartbeat, that it was highly possible he wasn't going to survive. They send me to this room, and we all know when you go into that room that it's not good news. So I go into the room and I said he didn't make it. And sure enough, they said he didn't survive. So I go in and he's warm, still warm to the touch, and he's got his shorts and his t-shirt while he has his tubes in his mouth. And there's nothing worse than seeing your kid, he's passed away, and it's just also so surreal, when you think about it. It's just surreal.
Having been, not in the same circumstance, but having been through losing a loved one, it is surreal. It still feels so cloudy, like it's almost like a dream. You have a dream, and then you keep wanting to wake up and hope that there is a dream, that it wasn't true. And it's, I know that feeling of, and I think people that are in your same place where they lost a loved one to something like this understand exactly that feeling of that fog that comes in and sets in. And
it does, and there's no other pain like a child. Losing a child. I lost my mother exactly 30 days prior to my son's death. So she died April 30th and he died May 30th. So that was surreal. Thank you. And I've never really grieved for her. It just kind of just hits you as you're like, what? Yeah. I have to deal with 2 so close together. This is just too much for me. But his death took precedence over my grief for my mother, and it still honestly has. But I think by advocating, that is what helps me deal with my grief. If he were alive today, he would say to me, Mom, keep doing what you're doing. He didn't die in vain, like none of our kids, right? Most of the parents out there are trying to help spread the word, to try and help save a life. And that's what our mission is. And it's not 1 or 2 people, it's thousands across the United States.
I know that what we talked about was most people don't realize that fentanyl is in a drug that they're taking. For example, your son with the cocaine didn't realize there was fentanyl in it. And I think a lot of the fentanyl poisonings are from people that don't realize fentanyl was in the product they were consuming.
Exactly.
In that drug they were consuming. So when did you guys kind of dawn on you that this was a fentanyl poisoning?
Well, what I thought initially was he had been drinking, and I thought he was just drunk. He rolled off his bed, he had hit some granite that was on the floor, and I thought, well, that's how he passed away. He hit his head and it hit him in the right spot. But another mom she messaged me on Facebook, and she said, you know, a private chat, she said, you know, my son died from a fake Percocet had fentanyl. And that was a couple months before Jake passed. So she put the bug in my ear about possibility of it being fentanyl. I had an idea, but I didn't know for sure until I received the coroner's report. And so he had alcohol, carfentanil, and fentanyl and cocaine in his system. So he had 4 different things in his system. But, you know, he wasn't a known drug user, and I know this because he had had a blood test to give blood prior, a couple months prior. He had no drugs in his system. So I think possibly
more of a recreation.
Well, that, and I think the death, my mother's death, probably, you know, it affected him, and he was using it more, plus the girl he was with. And the girls that I think he chose to be around were drug users.
Now, carfentanil, most people, fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than morphine and 50 times more powerful than heroin.
Yes.
And then carfentanil is, I don't know, 50 times or 100 times more powerful than fentanyl. So to have both of those in there is...
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I have to make peace with it and just say, you know what, Jacob he's okay. He's in God's hands. He's with my husband and my mom and my dad and his other grandparents. And
we're still stuck down here.
And we're stuck here. And I know that when it's my time, he will greet me,
yes.
you know?
Yeah,
so
that's a great way to look at things,
that's the
too.
only way I can look at it without driving myself nuts.
And I think that what gives you so much strength, you know, as I think the approach. When we lost our kids, we had a decision to make. It's either you can focus on just the loss and the pain of it, or you can understand that there was nothing you could do to change it, and that moving forward, how we looked at things, our attitude and our what we did moving forward was really what going to define us. And so we chose to more embrace it and try to stop other families from having to lose a loved one like we did. And I know that's kind of the approach you've taken. Tell us some of the things that you have done, that you're involved in. What is it you can do? And maybe even encourage some other people out there what they can do.
So Rachel's Angels is doing billboards right now, and they do them across the United States. Jacob was featured on one in Tempe the whole month of January. And actually, he's going to be on another one in Tucson, which is where we need it, because we're so close to the border.
Oh, yeah. And
so that's one huge way to get this information out there, right, of what's going on in the United States. So they're going to be doing, talking about the border.
So that's Rachel's Angels.
Rachel's Angels.
Can people donate to them as well?
Yes, they can. Yes, they
Which
can.
will help pay for these billboards, because they're not cheap either.
Yes, no, and parents, I'm glad you said that, because parents, we all pay out of our own pockets to get these billboards up. We don't mind to do that because we want people to understand what this is doing. It's devastating the United States, and something has to be done because otherwise we're getting rid of this generation of children.
This is the opium wars of 200 years ago, which crippled the dynasty of China. Now I almost view it as just like you've got China providing the cartels these precursors and the fentanyl, and then they are taking it and putting it into our market, whether it's in the fentanyl powder, fentanyl pills, and also fentanyl that's going into all of the drugs so that they can increase addictability right from the get-go. So thank you for addressing that, because I think most people don't want to say that. They feel, you know, they're a little bit reluctant to say it, but the truth is the truth.
It is the truth, and it's a weapon of mass destruction, and it's, you know, drug-induced homicide. People always tell me, oh, it's overdose. No, it's not overdose. An overdose is when you shoot too much heroin in your arm. And that's, you know that you could overdose from it. It's no different than me giving you a cup of coffee with arsenic.
We've always dealt in this profession with people who are addicted to drugs, cocaine, heroin. And you'll see somebody that can smoke crack or use cocaine for 20 years.
Yes.
You weren't seeing a whole ton of people who were addicted to drugs for 20, 30 years weren't dying until fentanyl was introduced, for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a plane load, they say, of people going down per day.
Who shares some of the responsibility of really, I guess, introducing this type of drugs and fentanyl into our societies?
Well, the borders. We can't just let you know, these people come in with all these lethal drugs and kill our kids. We have to do something about it. It's just an open faucet is what it is.
The fact that the cartel hasn't changed the way they do business, they're actually even becoming more aggressive,
Yes.
tells you that we're not affecting their
No.
their business model by 10 to 15%. If we were, they would change their business, but they're not. They're actually becoming, nowadays we'll just see they'll throw it in a duffel bag in the back seat.
We do need stronger penalties against our drug dealers. We do, because if we send that message to them, maybe they'll say, "Oh gosh, I don't want to." You know, maybe they'll switch off to something else and just say, "I don't want to go to prison for doing this." I mean, I don't think they don't have a conscience. So I would just say something has to be done. I know there are several laws that they're trying to, or bills they're trying to pass, but sadly, I'm not sure why they're stopped. Why sometimes they don't pass them, because as you know, the Ashley Dunn Act has been they've tried to get it through several times. Yeah. What I think the legislatures need to do is, I think they need to go and really educate themselves, because I've seen them ask questions about fentanyl. They don't know a lot about it.
Have you heard of xylazine?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Heard of xylazine.
For those of you who don't know, xylazine is another type of synthetic opioid. However, there is no approved human use. Where fentanyl has approved human uses, xylazine does not. It is a horse tranquilizer. Mm-hmm. 0 approved uses for human consumption, and it is more powerful than fentanyl, but impervious to things like Narcan or naloxone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Speaking on Narcan or naloxone, you need to have that. Everybody needs to have a box in their medicine cabinet. But what I've run into is resistance. Like people, I don't need that. Well, here's the thing. Your grandchild could get into your prescription drug, an opiate, and you know, get poisoned with it. So you could administer the naloxone and save their life. So it's always good to have it. It's no different than me carrying my EpiPen as far as I'm concerned. And I give boxes of it away all the time.
We tell everybody, you have to assume that every drug you take, no matter what it is, has fentanyl in it at this point.
Exactly.
If you're buying it off the street, the chances of it having fentanyl are probably close to 100%. We still feel very energized, and we feel like this is something we need to be doing, is out there speaking on behalf and for the families who lose loved ones.
I agree, and it can happen to anybody. Fentanyl does not discriminate. No. It doesn't care if you're rich, poor, educated, not. It doesn't care your ethnicity. Robert De Niro's grandson just died recently from a fake pill. And I want to thank you for speaking in front of the legislature, because I've heard you speak a few times and you're very effective, and you know, I appreciate that you want to help save lives, because you get it. Not everybody gets it, and I think people need to be more educated like you are.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for everything you do.
I do it for you. I do it for all the families out there. I think it's important enough. And if I can save one, I know you probably feel the same way. If we can save one person, it's worth every bit of effort we go through, and hopefully it memorializes the losses that we've sustained. You know, that we can do something for our loved ones by saving somebody else. So
I agree. And I wanted to also touch on Snapchat. A lot of the kids are getting their pills on Snapchat. Snapchat is huge, and I know several people who have lost their kids from buying a pill on Snapchat, and also doesn't stop them from doing it on Facebook or Instagram. And so
I know I would love to see social media platforms held accountable.
Yes.
Because they can take away your political voice, but then they tell you they can't take away pornography, child sexual abuse material, or people selling drugs openly on their platforms.
Something has to be done, because there's a lot of vulnerable kids out there that they just think, oh, and the parents need to watch. They need to monitor what their kids are doing.
Ultimately, humans are going to make their own choices, and we can't control that piece of it, but we can certainly do the best we can to educate and be part of our children's lives and do as much as we can, and in the end,
it's their decision.
It's their decisions, unfortunately sometimes, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you for, sorry for your loss, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And you want to hold that up real quick?
Yes. Where's Jake?
Just a reminder, Forever 31, and please, hopefully you've learned something today and you can take some lessons home from Teresa and Danya and just for everything you guys do to be voices against fentanyl. So,
thank you. Thank you for being a voice, and thank you for continuing to help save lives, because without people like you, we wouldn't get the word out, because we can only do so much, but you're such a great voice, and so thank you for doing everything you're doing, and again, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.